All right, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
This is the Tornado, Tony Penicow.
And Psychic Tom Paget, full of predictions.
Sure. And we're coming at you with another edition of the Fight News Unlimited, Fight Talk Unlimited, Combat Sports Show. We got a name change now that we're on Spreaker.com. Fight Talk Unlimited. We're going with that. We've called ourselves that before, but briefly. Usually call ourselves the FNU CSS. But now it's Fight Talk Unlimited. I like that better. So, to start off, I want to start off with wrestling for once. We had something bizarre happen Sunday. 3 professional wrestlers died on the same day.
Yeah, I know.
All of them retired, but one of them was the son of Jerry the King Lawler, which is crazy. Brian Christopher Lawler. This is the craziest part of all. He hung himself in jail after being held on DUI and evading arrest in Tennessee.
Brian Christopher Lawler had, and like I said, me being, a wrestling fan, I got to see him wrestle in person a couple times. I remember he started wrestling when he was 16, so at 46 now, he started wrestling 30 years ago. And he wrestled a lot in his father's Memphis promotion, and then he did get called up to the WWE back in the mid to late 90s. And for the longest time, his gimmick was everybody obviously knew who he was, so they would call him Jerry's Kid, and he would flip out, I'm not Jerry's Kid. And then he got with Scott Taylor, and they ended up doing a 3-man tag team with Rikishi, who was cousins with The Rock. And, they were too cool, and they would dance, and they would have a good old time. They'd come out dancing in the ring. But he always did have issues with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, landed him in trouble more than one occasion, got him fired a couple times. And I guess the influence of his father helped getting him, back, even if it was just, in, small capacity. WWE tried to pay for his rehab a couple years ago, and it's just tragic, that, something like this got, was being held for DUI, and, he figured that, best to end it, and that's really sad.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, it makes me, it's obviously not a similar situation because it wasn't involving jail, but it kind of makes me wonder about the Anthony Bourdain situation, if there was an alcohol involved in that decision, too. Being out back in a familiar area, drinking too much, and then possibly for him, maybe taking a pill that he's prescribed for depression with one of those side effects that causes suicidal thoughts. The next thing you know, you wake up dead, or you don't wake up, you're dead. But this one, obviously, he probably wasn't drunk at this point because maybe he was still drunk if he was being held for it. So just not thinking straight and saying, I'm screwed, and just letting it get to your head, and poop, I'm ending it. 46 years old, though. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Also, the bigger name, I guess you could say, you just mentioned him last week, Tony. Erie. Nikolai Volkov. We were just talking about him because of this Nazi guy from Philly. That was...
yeah, you know what? You're right. Yeah, you're right. Funny you say that. And they said with Nikolai, 70 years old, on the verge of turning 71, so still, not that old in today's society. And like I said, I saw him wrestling live just 8 years ago. And I was over at my friend's house when I got the text message about it, and my one friend that was there had actually gone with me when we went to that wrestling card. And I've been talking about Nikolai, and I probably mentioned this last week, for the guy that played the Russian villain, and, his whole thing was just like a power guy. He didn't do a whole lot of moves, aside from a couple clotheslines here, some forearms across the back, some stomps, a few headbutts to the sternum, sternum and, you know, a backbreaker here and there. That was really it. And he was still able, you know, to put on entertaining matches. You know, he wrestled Bruno San Martino a number of times back in, like, the late 70s or the mid to late 70s. Then going into the 80s, you know, they teamed up with the Iron Sheik, had feuds with Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, you know, virtual, you know, who's who of that time frame. And then eventually they did move on to being a babyface, good guy, and the fans really took to him. And as I said, I met him 8 years ago on this local card right outside of Philadelphia. And that night, they were talking about, you know, how, you know, he came to America. He was only actually a quarter Russian. And he was Croatian, part Italian.
His real last name was Peruzovic.
Peruzovic, that's Joseph Peruzovic. And they said that he actually hated communism. You know, and I remember Freddie Blassie, who was his manager, said, well, then you know what you do? He goes, you go out there and you make yourself look so despicable because that's how you're fighting against communism. You're portraying them as despicable. So I got to meet him on the card. They were giving him an award that night. And I went up to him afterwards when the show was, you know, people were just kind of mingling around. And I went to him and I said, you know, congratulations, sir. You know, well deserved. And I shook hands. And he just gave me the warmest smile. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, you know. And then I looked at him and I said, you know, I'm still mad at you and the Iron Sheik for cheating to win the tag team titles in WrestleMania 1. And he just laughed. You know, what a warm, genuine, funny guy. Freddie Blassie said, you know, he would spare no expense for his children, his two daughters, and he found wrestling as a way to take care of them. But he would have no problem depriving himself of anything. You know, when other guys went out to dinner, he would get a hot plate and, you know, just make dinner in his room. You know, other guys would go out there buying lavish clothes and all that. If he got a tear in his pants or whatever, he would, you know, get a sewing needle and, you know, a thread, and he would fix them. And all because he just wanted to take care of his family. And sadly, with Nikolai, there was no foul play. It was just big man, had heart issues. His wife wanted to wake him up to give him his medication and found him unresponsive.
Then the third one, Brickhouse Brown. You might not have ever heard of him, but it's odd. He died of a completely different cause of death than the other two, but it was prostate cancer at 57 years old. But he's also connected to Jerry Lawler because he wrestled in the South, wrestling Jerry Lawler. And he wrestled with Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame President Johnny Mantell. And Mantell said it's a tough day for the wrestling business. If we can learn anything from these tragedies today, it's that let's all stick around as long as we can and take care of each other.
And you know what, to tell you about Brickhouse Brown, I never really got to see him wrestle much, maybe highlight clips here and there. But I remember Mick Foley talking about him a lot. Because Mick Foley was saying, you know, when he was really breaking into the business and he was wrestling down at Mid-South, and how Brickhouse, you know, would really, you know, look out for him. And then the one funny story he ended up telling, but he was saying, like, one time Mick Foley couldn't afford a hotel room, and Brick was like, no, you're not staying in your van, you know, come stay in the room with me. You know, but the one thing about Brickhouse Brown, what they said that was pretty funny, was the one manager down there who ended up being in WWE, his name was Downtown Bruno, in WWE, he was known as Harvey Whippleman. And he said he was the guy that could piss everybody off. And just, he was one of those grating, obnoxious people that just, you know, just had a way of getting on people's nerves. And they said the one time he was down there, he was telling some racial jokes, you know, and he's laughing and this and that. And Brickhouse pulled out a gun and held it to his head. And he started shaking. He goes, what? He goes, I'll show you what a black man can do right now. And they said, you know, Downtown Bruno started crying and shaking. And he goes, you don't think I'd waste a perfectly good bullet on your worthless ass? And then they all got the last in on him.
Nice. Well, we got a couple other pieces of news before we go to reviews and previews of a lot of action over the weekend and a lot of action coming up. Big fight coming up for the UFC. Big fight card, and we just had one too. A big Fox card, and it was pretty promising. But for the first time, UFC President Dana White visited the White House, and it wasn't his actual family house, the White House. It was the presidential White House. That's going around the news today. He's got a picture of himself in the Oval Office there with Trump, and the belt on the desk, and so they came in and surprised him. But pretty interesting. Anyway, another guy has some not nice things to say about the UFC. It's made some big news the other day. Cody Garbrandt, he's got a big fight coming up here, a rematch against A. Dillashaw. And this was a fight that I predicted wrong. I thought Cody Garbrandt was going to take care of business, and he just got caught very early on in the fight and got TKO'd. But he's coming out now before this fight, and he's saying UFC is paying fighters $10,000 to get their asses beat, while MLB players make millions. And he didn't mince words, basically. He says, life as a UFC fighter is, quote, eat what you kill, unquote. And he added that my money thing, I never wanted to have my motivation to be money. That's not why I got into this sport. I got into it to be a world champion. What can I do? I pulled out of the fight for their first date in July. I had a wife that was pregnant. I fought Dominic Cruz for $200,000 a year before that. I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to get insurance. All the things you're thinking. You made it. You're a world champion, and you got all this effing money, but we're not, man. I understand you have to build your way up to it, and it's good, but I couldn't pull out. So I was basically saying the first fight was a fluke because he wasn't ready. And then he had something, or the article writer says, unless you're a complete lunatic like Travis Fulton, who has well over 300 professional MMA fights, the window for a fighter to compete and make any kind of real money is small, particularly at the highest level in the UFC, so any opportunity to cash in understandably becomes paramount. That's the author of this article. But then Garbrandt goes on to say, you have to live life, and now I have to take care of my family. That's why you see all these fighters who want these money fights. You can't blame them. They go in there and literally take years off our life. For what? 40,000? 50,000? Some of these fighters are coming in at 10 and 10. So what if they get their asses beat and make what? 10,000? It's crazy, man. You got NHL players and MLB players making millions and millions and millions. And we're the fastest growing sport in the world. Something's got to change. So, it's interesting. This is a guy who's coming up on a title fight. He's done the Ultimate Fighter thing. He's been a company guy. And even he is willing to step out there and put his neck on the line and making these kind of comments. And at the same time, you have all these guys that have invested into the UFC that are probably looking for a return on investment. I mean, you've even got now some of these NHL and MLB players that are invested, I think. Definitely some football players. I know Tom Brady was one of the ones that they extended an investment offer to, so it's kind of crazy. The owners might be making more than the actual participants across the board, everybody. So that would be unbelievable to me. But, I wouldn't be surprised. So, they've got $4.2 billion tied up into this organization now. They're trying to reap their benefit before they give it to the fighters. And it's one of the reasons why I think you see these guys at the end of their contract saying, time to go to Bellator. Interesting. But, the whole independent contractor thing is stopping anything serious from happening on the union front. I don't know if a union would be the solution anyway. I think what you really need to do to make the UFC fighters happy is to roll back the Reebok situation and allow them to have their sponsors again. But I don't think that's going to happen.
How many years was that Reebok deal, Rich? Did you know offhand?
I think it was 6. So I think it's till next year. I think they did it in 2014 or 15.
13. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure when it starts. Seems like forever.
16.
Yeah, well, that would be a plus. They could get rid of that.
And as far as boxing last week, we had Katie Taylor making it look easy against Kimberly Connor there. She got a win last Saturday. Dylan White had a gigantic win there over Joseph Parker. That was possibly unexpected for a lot of people. I didn't see the fight, but I did read a little bit about it.
It wasn't a big scrap. It was close. It was competitive.
Right. And then we had Mikey Garcia, of course, really making it look easy against Robert Easter Jr. Got a unanimous decision, or no, did he TKO?
It was unanimous decision. Yeah, he scored and walked down in the third round, and just really just did what he had to do.
Right. Another heavyweight fight, Derek Chisora beating Carlos Takam. That was a KO. And also Luis Ortiz on the undercard there of the Garcia fight got a knockout as well.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal. Looking good. I mean, hit him right on the chin. A nice sweeping right hand. That was a good one. And up this...
The guy trying to get up. It was like he was trying to get up too fast, and he didn't have his equilibrium down yet. Like he should have taken a couple count on his knee to at least trying to get his bearings upon him.
Right. And one more fight from last week worth mentioning here. Steve Claggett got a big win in his career over Petros Ananyan. It's funny, BoxTrek has all the fights lined up WWW, so they got all the winners on the left side, but Steve Claggett is the only one with an L next to his name, but he's on the winner side now. Because it's Petros Ananyan who's on the L side. Alright, so then this weekend, the biggest fight of the weekend is, let's see here, Sergey Kovalev versus Eleider Alvarez, and it's light heavyweight.
Just got my ticket the other day.
To that fight?
Yeah. Yeah, me and 4 of my friends are going.
Oh, so it's in Philly?
No, it's in Atlantic City.
Oh.
It's at the new Hard Rock Casino, which used to be the Taj Mahal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I believe I've seen Alvarez fight before. I want to find his record here before I confirm that. I think he fought in Boston before.
And while you're looking up that, something that Tom and I had talked about, a week or so ago, some of the fights in the card, look to be decent. You got the double main event. And, when I was bringing up the fact that, you got a couple of the fights should be competitive, but you have your definite clear favorites, which are both the Russian fighters. No collusion on that. But hopefully what to do was match them up. And I remember talking about Bivol, and I remember, I forget what I said. I know he's fighting Isaac Chalem, but I said something, and Tom's like, no, he's the clear favorite. He could be the best guy in this division. And I'm like, yeah, I know the name. I was drawing a blank. And then I went back, and I looked at his record, and all that. I'm like, yeah, I know who he is. He absolutely obliterated Sullivan Barrera, who's a tough Cuban fighter. Had to win. Sullivan Barrera has a win over Joe Smith, another tough kid. And, Bivol just, really took it to him and then ended up knocking him out.
Yeah, we got two interesting matchups here because Chilemba does have 5 losses, but he's got 25 wins and 2 draws. And it's for a title, WBA World Light Heavyweight title. So obviously, unification talks are going to immediately commence after these 2 fights are over. But Bivol is 13-0, and obviously looks good. Kovalev 32-2-1. Lighter Alvarez 23-0. But Lighter Alvarez has not fought Andre Ward. So, can't really say you can match the 2 up based on records. Sergey obviously has more fights at the professional level. Lighter is used to fighting up in Canada. I made a mistake. I'm thinking of another guy that fought in Boston. But now he's fighting in New Jersey. The only other place he fought in America was Chicago, I believe. So, it's going to be an interesting arena for him to come in and try to win in, especially against a guy as dominant as Kovalev can be. So, I think Kovalev's going to pretty much make it look easy, like I've been saying. And I could possibly get a knockout here before. I don't know how many rounds there are going to be, but probably 12. I think he can get a knockout. But let me see the biggest name a Lighter has fought. Probably Jean Pascal, and he won a majority decision over him. And he did knock out Lucien Butte when he was 32-4. He does have a majority decision win over Chilemba, too, back in 2015. And nobody else earth-shattering here. Edison Miranda, who won a unanimous decision against when he was 35-8. So, I don't know. I think Sergey is going to have no problem here.
And I know my friends are excited about going down. I'm excited to see how the fights look at the new Hard Rock. The floor layout looks pretty good. I mean, we're in the upper level, but we're like center of the ring. So, I mean, and that's good cost effective, for my friends as well.
Cool. Yeah, Kathy Duva is promoting it too. Our old friend there, we interviewed her once. And
it's funny talking about Kathy Duva when we had her on the call a couple years ago, and we were talking about the late great Arturo Gatti, and she was talking about being his promoter and how basically he was family to them, and how heartbreaking it was when he was tragically passed away. And that night I had asked for her email and sent her the article that I wrote on Arturo Gatti, and she did send me really the nicest response, and it just made me feel really good, that how it was appreciated by somebody that was very close to him, and then also how she gave me very high praise for my writing as well.
Awesome. Yeah, she was interesting to talk to. She had a lot of good perspective.
Oh, she was great. Love talking to her,
And
so,
go ahead.
I'll say, you guys ready for some more big boxing news?
All right, what do we got?
Well, I don't have any of the full details yet. I was talking to, and I'm sure you guys remember, last year when I did that boxing training video with some of my trainees, and the one gentleman that was in the video, Hank Cisco, 95-year-old gentleman, trained under Charlie Goldman with Rocky Marciano, and referee Joe Frazier early in Frazier's career has a picture of him throwing Muhammad Ali out of the ring and all that. Well, he called me the other night. We were talking, and he's going to be 95 in November. Knock on wood, the man's still doing great, very vibrant. And our old friend Damon Feldman and another gentleman, Neil Gelb, who I've been with a few times, they're working on like this, kind of like a celebrity boxing exhibition type card, and they're like, hey, they'd like to invite Hank. It's the weekend of his 95th birthday. Then they came up with the idea, like, Hank, you want to get up there and referee it out. You know, and he's like, well, I'm 95 years old, I can't really do a whole lot, maybe a round. And then he's like, and then as he's thinking, it's going to be like mainly exhibitions and all that, but with his age, he wants to do something that's going to be, more of a friendly type of exhibition. And the first name that popped into his head was a very prominent member of Team Tornado Boxing that you guys may have seen videos of.
Right. One of your trainees?
What?
One of your trainees?
Well, one of my trainees may be on the card, but the member of Team Tornado Boxing that he wants to referee is the main member of Team Tornado Boxing.
Oh, so you're going to referee?
No. He wants to referee the main member of Team Tornado Boxing.
Oh. Which is
you get it?
You're fighting?
Ding, 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 ding.
So you're fighting an exhibition. Awesome.
Yeah. And his idea, and like I said, we haven't, like I said, we just spoke about this Monday night or Tuesday night, I don't remember. And, his idea behind it was maybe, and like I said, nothing's set in stone yet. Like I said, we really got a lot of details to work on. But what he would like to do is maybe have me and one of my trainees, Potato Head, maybe go in there and, like, spar an exhibition. That way, it doesn't get, too much knockdown, drag out, anything like that. Keep it with two guys, that will work with, that'll give a good show, that'll work hard, but won't try to, press it too much.
Right. A friendly, as they call it in soccer, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, here's some breaking news on boxing. ESPN has done a landmark boxing deal with Top Rank through 2025. Just came through my boxing.
Yeah, I saw today. Bob Arum, the man will be promoted until he's 94 at this juncture. You know what? The thing about Bob Arum, you can say good things about him, you can say bad things about him. Bob Arum, will work hard until the day, he dies. And man's 86 years old, and he works hard.
Right. Yeah, he's got a good deal there with them. And then Lucas Matisse has announced his official retirement from boxing. So obviously, Manny Pacquiao did more than teach him a lesson there. He retired him. Crazy. This is a weird story that just came up. A boxing champ was stoned to death by community members in East London after he was allegedly caught robbing two women of their belongings. So you're talking about instant justice. Jesus. He's 40 years old. Him and two of his friends fled the scene, but the community chased them down and got him in the bushes where they threw stones at him. Screaming, singing, and undulating. Obviously, he's an African guy. The community members took turns to beat him up before loading him in a wheelbarrow and leaving him by the government building. Police were called and he was rushed to the hospital where he was certified dead. Wow. And one of the most toughest guys, I guess, is on his opponent list was Malcolm Clausen. He lost. And he lost his title to Thando Vakuza in 2008. He won the title in 2008, and then he lost it a year later. Then he quit boxing. And he obviously wasn't very good at robbing people. That's crazy. That's messed up. And I'm going to have to send you this, Tom, because you know how you're always asking about the opponents that we see. We've brought this guy's name up quite a bit, Christian Late. And the article is called Christian Late, the boxer with 300 fights and 279 defeats.
Oh, boy.
And you want to talk about motivation. Here's the quote. Of course, I'm a failure in terms of boxing, but when my little boy is older, people will ask him if he was fed and had clothes on his back. He does. I went out and did the hardest way imaginable to earn for my family. So there you go. He did it for the money.
Well, I mean, to each his own. Yeah. But you'd have to think there's easier ways to make a living.
Crazy. All right. So, this Friday, we also have one other card to talk about Saturday. We do have one other fight tomorrow night to talk about, and it's from New Zealand. So, it might be happening now for all you. I don't know how the time zone situation works. But Billy the Kid, 43-4 coming in. And he's fighting Tevin Farmer, who's 25-4-1.
Billy Kid.
And it says here, suspended by New York State Athletic Commission indefinitely under Billy Dibb's name on BoxRec. Yes, so I guess that's why he has to fight in New Zealand. Or Australia. Australia, I think. That's where they're fighting. I've never seen that on BoxRec. Suspended by New York State Athletic Commission indefinitely. It's got a little exclamation point and everything.
I'll tell you about Tevin Farmer. I've gotten to follow him over the last 5 years pretty closely. And Tevin Farmer, when I first really started seeing him fight live, I didn't like him. I did not like him. He reminded me of an Adrian Broner type. First time I saw him, at the time he was something like maybe 12-4 or something like that. You know, not a great record. He came bouncing into the ring, and I remember writing the article, and both you guys laughed. I put on, he wore sunglasses to the ring to, keep from all the sequins that he was wearing blinding him. And they got he was, he was kind of showboating, and he really didn't impress me that much. He was fighting a real tough, sturdy Mexican fighter. He outpointed him, but I'm like, I wasn't overly impressed, And then a few months later, he was fighting again at the Valley Forge Casino. Tom and I were there, and he was fighting a really, really tough Puerto Rican kid that I've seen a couple times by the name of Victor Vasquez. And I said, you know what? Vasquez is going to bring the fight to him. And I said, if this kid is goofing off and, not focusing, I said, Vasquez is going to tear him up. He came in focused, laser sharp, and he beat Vasquez up en route to a late round stoppage. And I said, you know what I said 3 months ago, I take back. I said, wow, he really impressed me. And then I watched him another time. He had a couple fights on ESPN and things like that, and I was watching all the, wow. There were times he was going in there, and one time he was an underdog playing undefeated kid, and he schooled him. He literally took him to first grade school and gave him a lesson. Nice. And I went from being a guy I'm saying, wow, no, not a fan, to saying, wow, I really am becoming a fan. And then I met him at the 2300 Arena in South Philly probably like 2 years ago, and I was talking to him a little bit. And the thing is, such a nice kid. And I was like, you know what? I was wrong. I'll admit that I was wrong. I was totally wrong. And went to watch his fight last year, going for the vacant title against a Japanese fighter. And if he lost 2 rounds of that fight, that was being generous to the Japanese fighter to even give the guy 2 rounds. And the fact that he got that decision is, just a travesty of justice. Just complete, absurd scoring. And, you could look at his face afterwards, he was like heartbroken. And then the Japanese fighter ended up getting the title stripped for testing positive for a banned substance. Now he's fighting Billy Dibb. Like I said, it's in Dibb's basically backyard. So Farmer is really going to have to go out there and kick the living shit out of him. And I have a funny feeling that he is going to box dib like a kangaroo.
Well, it always depends on hometown cooking if it goes to decision.
Yeah, I know, and that's why it's one of those fights where, like, I mean, you have to really, if it's going to go the distance, you know, I mean, you have to, I mean, basically beat the hell out of the guy so bad you might have to knock him down in every round.
You never know.
Just to get it.
You never know if Adelaide Bird has a passport, she might be there.
Oh God! Don't say that. That's not funny, man. That's not funny to joke about.
Well, it's better than crying. Better than screaming.
And this one, it's probably the best fight of the week. It's going to be on Fox on Saturday, believe it or not. DeBella Entertainment from New York. And it's a really stacked card. Premier Boxing Champions put together here. And believe it or not, the only title fight is a female fight. I don't even know if it should be televised.
Wow.
It's in the smack dab in the middle of the card. We have Alicia Napoleon, 9-1 at super middleweight, fighting Hannah Rankin, who's 5-1 for the WBA World Female Super Middleweight title there. The main event, of course, is Devin Alexander versus Andre Berto. I guess you could call these guys journeymen. They're not really titleists anymore, but Andre is, probably famous for being Floyd Mayweather's last bout before McGregor. But before that, he was pretty formidable in his day. And Devin Alexander's kind of a rising star that's had some difficulty lately at welterweight. But this is a big test for both guys, and they both have similar experience. Devin comes in at 27-4-1. Andre comes in at 31-5.
It's like, this is a fight where, the winner, maybe buys himself another chance. With the loser, this might be your last chance. So it's going to have two desperate guys.
Yeah, this is like last chance to show yourself worthy of a title shot. Or, last shot to start working towards one at their point. But the co-main event, another guy that might consider retiring if it doesn't go well, Luis Galazzo at welterweight, 37-7, fighting Bryant Perella, who is 15-1. And that one loss came in his last 6 fights. But I think he's on a 4-fight win streak. And we got Peter Quillen. Somebody's one's got to go on the run, I guess, here. Super middleweight. He's 33-1, Quillen. With 1 draw. Julian Love is his opponent, Mayweather guy. He is 24-1-1. Then we got welterweights, Sergey Lipinets, who is 13-1, fighting Eric Bonet, who is 20-5. Let's see what else we got here. Marcus Brown at light heavyweight comes in undefeated at 21-0, fighting Lennon Castillo, who's 18-1-1. A lot of high-quality matchups here. Good names. And then we get down to this one I just thought I'd mention for the name. I don't know if he's related to the guy Donald Trump hates, but Richard Comey is in action this week. He is 26-2 on this card. Fighting Yardley Armenta Cruz, who is 24-10. And Yardley is obviously the brother of the guy that's got to be involved in the Somebody's Always Got to Go fight this week, as this is the only one I can see in the good ones. Brandon Figueroa, 15-0, fighting Armenta Cruz's brother, Luis Roy Suarez Cruz. And he is 13-0. Fuck, he's 13. 13-0 versus 15-0. Also, Gary Antoine Russell is on the card of the famous Fighting Russells. He is 6-0, fighting Jose Arturo Esquivel, who is 10-7. Yeah, so stacked card all around. I don't know how many fights are going to be televised or even highlights, but it's pretty good stuff.
It's funny because when you were mentioning some of those names on that card, I was linking them to last week's Mikey Garcia fight because you had Lipinets, whose only loss was Garcia, and then decision, and then you had Tommy, who I saw fight Robert Easter in Reading a couple years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy. Remember that guy? Yep, saw that guy. So these are the, and you don't want to say it in a negative way, but these are like the also-rans of last week's fight. So you have a guy that lost to Easter versus a guy that lost to Garcia.
Crazy stuff. So, we're going to have to move on now to MMA. And we have a lot to discuss. Actually, we've got fights going on right now. This will be the very first time I've even watched this stuff. The PFL is going on right now on TV. Professional Fighters League. And it's Rashid Magomedov versus Luis Firmino. Third round right now. But they've already had 3 fights. Chris Wade won over Yuki Kawana. Dan Spawn, I believe we interviewed years ago now. He got a win over Artur Alibulatov by technical decision. But it was unanimous, however that works. 56 seconds in to the third round. By the way, Chris Wade won by guillotine choke in the first round. 0 seconds in.
Is Rashid any relation to Khabib?
I don't know. Probably. Khabib, you mean?
Yeah, you have to see if he's a Dagestan guy. Dagestan.
Rashid Magomedov. Probably. I do believe he is. Also, the first fight of the night, Thiago Tavares won a split decision over Arthur Estrazulas. Yeah, he's from Dagestan.
That's a good vacation spot.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I won't book any flights, but maybe we'll book a flight for Adelaide Bird.
Yeah. Yeah. Let her try that kind of judging over there and see what happens. Yeah. Said the most popular occupation in that country, contract killer.
Yeah.
Sure.
So up ahead, after this Magomedov fight, we have 3 more fights to come. And we got Maxime Grishin versus Rakeem Cleveland. Will Brooks versus Robert Watley. And Vinny Magalhaes versus Brandon Halsey. 4 fights, the main event, of course, is Jason High versus Nathan Schulte. And they don't have records for these other guys, but the main event guys, Jason High comes in at 21-7 and Schulte 12-3. But Magomedov is 20-2. Rashid. Check that one out. Of course, we have UFC 227 coming up this weekend. That's a pretty interesting card. There's a big debate on whether you should pay for that card, but it is a card. The big one last week for free on Fox TV for the UFC. We had Dustin Poirier put on a masterful slugfest performance, and he just was a little bit more dynamic than the ever active and always full of heart Eddie Alvarez. But it was a reach factor, number 1, and it just was style. Dustin Poirier had the more active style. He seemed better prepared, and he was just very aggressive to the point that.
And we had a little bit of controversy at the end.
Right.
You know, in the old days, it seemed like the rule was that if there was any infraction or any timeout, when you restarted the fight, you went back to the same position before the incident occurred on the ground. And I don't know if you watched that, Rich, but Poirier was in a jam. I mean, he was mounted and up against the fence, and Alvarez was doing some damage, and then he mistakenly threw that 12-6 elbow that didn't really land, but Goddard stood him up, gave him a big lecture, but he didn't restart them in the same position. Now, I don't know, maybe the rules changed. This is the problem with this Mickey Mouse sport. I mean, in the NFL, it's either a 5-yard penalty or a 15-yard penalty. It's never, well, the referee, that's up to the referee to decide how much it is. How long would that last in the NFL? Make up the rule.
Yeah, and of course, it came from a guy who's a lightning rod for controversy.
What?
Of course, it comes from a guy who's a lightning rod for controversy, Mark Goddard.
Well, and it would be the same thing in baseball. I mean, well, strike 3 could be the batter's out, but the referee said, no, we're going to allow 4 strikes on this one. Well, the fighters say, well, why didn't it make much money? And, geez, well, no one watches and all this. Well, does stuff like that come into it? Because in other sports, and I think we could all admit, there are bad calls. There are there can be bad officiating. There can be mistakes. And in the NBA, there's flat-out corruption. Referees have went to prison for it. So I could say that the officiating is a factor. But in MMA and boxing, it's becoming the factor. Every week we talk about this.
Sometimes.
Every week. You're right. Week. I mean, and last year, Adley Bird ruined the whole year as far as I'm concerned. We don't need to even get beyond that. I mean, it just ruined. Boxing just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And so many people came on and said, this is why we walked away from the sport years ago, and this is why we're walking away from it now. And then we get stuff like this with the rules. I'm not saying that Goddard was completely wrong. I mean, there were a few other infractions, and Alvarez had to be just not thinking. I mean, after the first fight ended with the foul, he should have been super clean. It reminded me of Andrew Golota. The ball. Okay. I mean, how many low blows you have to have?
Right.
How many warnings? You should have said to Golota, forget this guy has a body. Hit him in the head. I mean, you can't really say that much. But I'm just saying with the referee's inconsistency. Why were they stood up? Alvarez had dominant position, and it just deflated him. Yeah. At the end of the fight, right then. I think, you've seen what happened. Poirier just went in and landed a bunch of combinations, finished it off as soon as the fight resumed. Alvarez was done. And I don't know, maybe it is. It's just the referee's discretion. He can either put him back in the position they were in, or if he's angry about something, he can just say, no, we're going to start all over again, and you were in the best position on the ground, but I'm taking it away because I just decided to. It's not in the book. I just made it up. Deal with it.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least it wasn't for a title. You can look at it that way, so,
Yeah, and Poirier may have won the fight anyway. I really just wanted the best man to win. I didn't have money bet on Elvis or anything, but the whole point, it just seems like every week we have to keep going through this. I mean, maybe it's just an unsolvable problem, and I'll confess I've been so busy this week I haven't checked the unified rules for MMA and to see what the referee is supposed to do in a situation like that.
Well, it is the one loss on John Jones's record from 12-6 elbows on Matt Hamill, right?
Well, I'm not talking about the elbows. I think Goddard was right in doing that. He could have taken the point because there were a few other fence wraps and stuff like that. Alvarez either fight to dirty or shoot, but I don't know which. I mean,
you have to wonder, too, how many were there in the John Jones situation? I don't remember.
Well, yeah, okay, but you notice the difference. John Jones is just disqualified. Here, my issue with this is the restart.
Right.
So, is the referee just said, well, I can decide where I'm going to restart that? I guess you're just going to give the referee discretion? Or should you put them back in the position they were in?
I'd have to look back. You'd have to look back at all the times guys were eye poked and stuff like that. I mean, 90% of the time that happens when they're on the feet anyway. But I think a lot of times that happens where they just break them up and they don't put them back into that position. But, I mean, yeah, like you said, it might be something that's in the rules explained better. But I didn't think it was anything crazy. I just thought it was, like, nitpicky a little bit. I mean, it was probably the first time in forever that's even been called 12-6 elbow situation. It was kind of lame,
Well,
but it is a rule.
Yeah, Goddard apparently said afterwards that there were a few other warnings he'd given. There were just so Alvarez holds a lot of the blame for this. But my point is, let's make it unified. Okay, after there's a warning, are we never going to put people back in the position, or do we always restart from the stand-up game? If that's the rules, let's be consistent.
Right.
But it just seems like things keep changing, and it's almost like, well, just let the referee do what he wants. And my point is, that would never fly in the NFL. It would never work. Well, it's a 12-yard penalty. Why is it 12 yards?
Yeah.
Because that's so. You don't like it, F you. And that's kind of the same thing that we're getting here.
Yeah.
Well, we have other fights to discuss, so.
And you know what? Actually, I didn't see that fight because I was watching the boxing matches. A friend of mine, when I had lunch with him on Sunday, he was talking about it, and it was one of the things he brought up. With the 12-6 elbow. Well, the gentleman that I'm going to see this weekend didn't really get a chance to talk to him much last weekend, but he lives only a mile from me. It's Eddie Alvarez's cousin. So, obviously we always talk, whenever we see each other, and I'm supposed to see him this weekend. So that's one of the things we're going to discuss.
Yeah.
Now you're sounding like a pro.
Like get some feedback. Yeah.
Well, so we got to educate you a little more on the MMA situation.
Yeah. Well, at least now, Tony, I hope you're a little more prepared. So now you can let them know you're on top of it. And
okay.
2 weeks from now, we'll be calling him the MMA Rain Man. Uh-oh.
There you go.
Pretty soon, man.
Let's see. But one guy who didn't need a referee this weekend was Jose Aldo. Back on the mat.
Tony, talk about an Arturo Getty, or Mickey Ward left hook to the liver. Oh, my God.
I heard that. It.
This was one of those horrible ones that they could replay it with the sound focused on it. And, when a professional fighter just about screams in agony, that thing was and there's just, what can you do? It was just, it was the timing, the accuracy, the physics of it. Stevens was moving in, the left hook to the liver went, and boom. Wow.
Yeah, it was a big thud. And probably broke something, or definitely ruptured a kidney if it didn't.
Now Stevens was arguing the stoppage, but if you look at it in slow motion, I believe the referee did the right thing. His head was on the floor, and he was actually looking in the other direction when some of those punches were coming in, and he didn't seem like he was moving quick enough.
I did not see any problem with the stoppage myself. I actually had to watch it after the fact because for some reason I had changed the channel and not got back in time to see that fight.
Yeah, but I really don't think that Stevens has a legitimate complaint about that. I mean, he was doing quite well. I mean, he was a close fight.
Right.
But all it takes is one shot, especially in that liver. I mean, it's not even a matter of willpower, not a matter of conditioning. I mean, it's just a shock. So what a setback for Stevens now, because he was on a hot streak.
Yeah, and apparently Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor actually stepped out and said he was happy for Jose. So maybe we're going to see the new Conor McGregor, or maybe that's part of his community service.
Well, you remember they're not in the same division anymore, even though there was talk about they'll move it up, but they're not really competitors now. So
there you go. And I have sad news for Tony, your little cousin, the tiny tornado, lost by unanimous decision to Joanna Jedrzejczyk. And I don't know, it was kind of a boring fight. It really was not Joanna's best day, and Tisha just couldn't use her advantage, which was being in close and grappling and trying to take Joanna down. It just did not work. Her game plan just did not work, and she tried. I mean, she had a lot of heart, and she had little successes here and there, but Joanna just has had the more complete game, and it was very unentertaining watching it. I mean, usually female fights, I've always said, are some of the best you can ever watch because, not so much now, but back in the beginning, it was like they were fighting for all of womankind. And this fight, it was just like, they were fighting to get a decision the whole time. And maybe they had a little bit too much respect for each other or something, but it just wasn't the war I expected it to be.
Yeah, and I just kind of thought that Keisha would be too smart and tough to finish, but not enough offense to do much, and kind of a snooze fest.
Yep, and then we had 3 unanimous decisions in a row. Alexander Hernandez over Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Jordan Mein over Alex Morono. Hakeem Dawodo over Austin Arnett. We had Islam Makhachev getting an armbar submission over Cajun Johnson, 4 minutes and 43 seconds into the first. Ion Cutelaba got a TKO 4 minutes and 25 seconds into the first round over Gadzhimurad Antagulov. Tough one. Ross Pearson lost to John McDessie by unanimous decision. Caitlin Chukagian beat Alexis Davis by unanimous decision. And third fight of the night, Dustin Ortiz used a head kick and punches to dispatch Mateus Nicolo Pereira 3 minutes and 49 seconds into the first round. So it seems like if it ended on this card, it ended in the first, or it ended by decision. First fight of the night, or second fight, sorry, Nina Ansaroff beating Randa Marcos by unanimous decision, and then the first fight was Devin Powell beating Alvaro Herrera by a kick to the body, 1 minute and 52 seconds into the fight.
To wrap up the card, Poirier demanding a title shot.
Really?
And there's talk about Conor coming back to fight Khabib, and suddenly Conor's ranked number 1 now. He leapfrogged over Ferguson. I like the way he did that.
How about the punishment, huh?
So, yeah, that was great. And apparently, the rumor is that Khabib will defend against Conor, and then on the co-main event, or hopefully on the same card or right around that time, we could have Tony Ferguson and Poirier. And then the winner of Ferguson and Poirier gets the winner of Conor and Khabib. So we'll see. I mean, right now, in my opinion, we still have those top 3, and then there's the second tier. We've got Khabib, Conor, and Tony Ferguson. I think they're the 3 best. But Poirier's been on a winning streak, so he's going to have to beat one of those guys.
Yeah. I actually saw Poirier out in Vegas when he was at Randy Couture's gym. I never got to talk to him, but I saw him working out there. But yeah, I'm excited to see how he uses this to his advantage. He does have a pretty unique style.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him credit. It looked like he was toast after that. When he dropped down to 45, couldn't get his career going. He came back up, and he's really been stringing together some wins. So, I mean, I think he's knocking on the door. I like the guy, but just think he's going to have trouble against any of those top 3. But, hey,
yeah.
He proved me wrong.
Good luck. TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt going at each other again this weekend. This is going to be a pay-per-view one. A lot of people are saying it's not worth the money, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because Demetrius Johnson always provokes this discussion. Because he's in the co-main event against Henry Cejudo. And Demetrius...
the sad thing about him, and I don't know if you caught any of UFC tonight last night, but even Cormier was kind of calling him out a bit, because it seems like whenever a fight with TJ is mentioned, Demetrius Johnson changes the subject real quick. And when he had that chance, because he's always complaining, he never gets respect, no one wants to watch his fights, he just get paid minimum wage and all that. Well, when TJ said, I'll come down to 125 and fight him, and he turned that fight down to fight Roy Borg so he could get the 11th defense of the flyweight title in the UFC, which maybe not one in a million people know about. you know, really turned a lot of people off. And Cormier did a good interview with him about that, and he still kept trying to get around it. He still wouldn't really answer the question. So, yeah, maybe that's it. They're saying, well, the main event's the only fight, and you really want to pay $70 to watch that.
Well, one of the reasons why he was so upset was because that whole thing was misrepresented by media in both sides at different points. Because basically, Dana White threatened to get rid of the whole flyweight division. He wasn't going to agree to this fight. And he really backed him up against the wall. And Demetrius wasn't so much upset about the idea of fighting TJ, it was the timing of it. You know, Roy Borg had already earned his shot and been promised that. So it was a lot about that situation that, you know, this guy had been promised this situation, he deserved it. And nobody tells me what to do and how high to jump. I mean, this is my career. I get to choose who I fight and when. That's the one choice you get.
And then the market will choose his payday. The market will choose his fan base. The market will choose his respect.
Right.
There you go. Go ahead. Pick all your fights. No one wants to watch.
I think he just took it as, like, you know, the fans are obviously wanting that fight to see me in a competitive match, but at the same time, you know, I have to go by what they told me I'm supposed to do first. I gotta, you know, take care of my obligations. But if he's dodging it now,
whatever. I mean, he can go to court and argue what all he wants. All I'm saying is that's the majority reaction to it. Is you know, yeah, there's all kinds of legalese things there. Oh yeah, well I got to fight Roy Borg. You know, people are staying up nights to see that. Sure. So there you have it. You notice something funny about this main event, though, how Cody Garbrandt is really toned down compared to the last time. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Because the conventional wisdom would say he's focused, he knows what went wrong in the first fight, he's got himself well-centered and balanced, and he's ready to go. But his personality isn't like that normally. Yeah. What got him to that championship belt is a fiery, in-your-face trash talker, and this may be an improvement. It's a fascinating fight, and it's kind of pick a match.
Well, you know, TJ and him have such great history together. They've been such good friends that I don't think this is going to be a very long fight. Again, I think TJ this time is going to have more difficulty. I think Cody is the better fighter, period. TJ just had the better game plan going into that first match. And maybe Cody's right. Maybe he was, I mean, he knows his own body, so maybe he was depleted at that point and not in the best position to take that fight the first time around. Well,
you know, we can get back into the old cliche excuses are like livers, you know, everybody has one.
All right.
But that's why we have the rematch. But we'll just see if this 2.0 Garbrandt is more effective, you know, without all that fire and without all that trash talk. And if he's just analytically looked at what went wrong, I mean, he had the fight won after the first round. And you remember that.
Right.
I mean, if that first round would have been 10 seconds longer, I don't see how TJ could have got out of it.
Yep.
So
I'm excited about it. I'm not paying for it though, so I can't contribute to that argument over whether it's worth paying for.
Yeah. Well, again, if we had a stacked undercard, that would be one thing. But
co-main event, like I said, again, Johnson versus Cejudo. Both of them have 2 losses, but Demetrius has twice as many wins, and then some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no disrespect to Henry Cejudo. I mean, he's he won the gold medal in the Olympics. I mean, outstanding talent all the way around, and has a good stand-up game. I mean, works hard, everything good about him, but it just got a big mountain to climb.
Right. And Cub Swanson, 25-9, fighting Renato Carneiro, also on this card. Carneiro is 12-1-1. And that's a big test for Cub to see if he's still relevant. And then we got a female fight, J.J. Aldrich, 6-2, fighting Pollyanna. That's a bad name for an MMA fighter, huh? Pollyanna Vienna Moda, who is 10-1. I can't say, you ain't no Pollyanna. She is. Then we got Thiago Santos, 17-6, fighting Kevin Holland, who's 12-3. Pedro Munhoz, who is 15-3, fighting Brett Jones, who's 15-1. Ricky Simon, 13-1, fighting Montel Jackson, who's 3-0. Ricardo Lucas Ramos, 11-1, fighting Kyung Ho Kang, who's 14-7. Shimon Moraes, 9-2, fighting Matt Sales, who is 7-1. We got Alex Perez way down on the card with a record of 20 wins and 4 losses. Somehow he's the third fight of the night. Fighting Jose Torres, who's undefeated at 8-0. And we got Danielle Taylor, 9-3, fighting Weili Zhang, who is 16-1 in a female fight. And the first fight of the night, Buren Luigi, who is 9-4, fighting Marlon Vera, who is 10-5. And that does it for the upcoming stuff. No Bellator events going on, and as I said, the Professional Fighters League is going on right now. Second round of the Grisham and Cleveland fight. And the only other thing I wanted to cover is the link I sent you guys the other day, yesterday. There's big news in the bare knuckle boxing world. It's starting to get more popular now. There's actually a major name in the NFL who is signing on to fight, and his name is Sean Merriman. And
you're saying they could get shanked to fight.
Yeah.
Sean Merriman, hell of a football player back in the day, man.
He has boxing experience too, not professionally, but I do remember us talking about him on the show, that he was doing boxing training to better prepare him as a linebacker for the NFL. So he does have a background in training in boxing. I don't know if he ever sparred before while he was doing that, or if the NFL ever let him go that far. But I'm sure he came close.
Like thinking about it, and I remember, training with Dr. Cox, and he was talking about different athletes that he always said, would make, good boxers. And he always used to bust my stones, because when I played football, I was a defensive lineman. Yeah, you defensive lineman. You're in the middle. You're just like grunting and slam into each other. But at the same time, what boxing can help you as, a football player, especially Sean Merriman, who was a linebacker, pass rushing specialist, he would have to go in there and he would have to use his hands, to get an offensive lineman off, or keep an offensive lineman from, engaging them. So a lot of times it was like, if you can use your hands to really jack into their chest, that's one thing. And then also the parry factor. Like when you're in there boxing, you get to learn how to, parry guys' hands away from his jab and stuff like that. So when an offensive lineman is, coming to try to engage you, you can use those skills, knock his hands away from, reaching your chest. So it gives us some good, defensive strategy out there.
Even when you're defending passes, like the short passes, you can take the lesson from footwork in boxing. Always stay 45 degrees to your opponent and stuff like that. Then not only that, but when you're targeting somebody or you're trying to fake somebody out, or the feints in boxing that you use, and trying to corner a guy in a certain situation, box him in against other players instead of using the ropes. I'm sure there's a lot of parallels that you could come up with. There's a long list. And actually, Teddy Atlas was working with the New York Jets on a whole boxing training thing years ago, too. I remember talking about it.
I remember that, yeah. Yeah, I think Rex Ryan brought him in, didn't he? Mm-hmm. When he was coaching the Jets?
Yeah. And that was all about
I think there was a Eric Mangini connection there, too.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sean Merriman, he's going to fight, and there's just one company out there, Damon, your buddy there out in Philly, is trying to put this bare knuckle boxing on the map, Damon Feldman. And this other company is coming in now and trying to attract multiple stars, and they're throwing a lot of money behind it. So it's going to get interesting. That's not the biggest name we're going to see. And a lot of ex-UFC fighters are getting involved too. Josh Neer came out recently, Phil Baroni, Melvin Gillard. His names have been mentioned. Grove. Just all kinds of interest starting to be stirred up. So we'll keep an eye on it. And, I'm actually pretty glad that we ended up finding out about it on the ground floor and covering it from the very beginning, because this could be interesting. This could put the UFC and boxing on their toes if this starts to get even more legit than it already is starting to shape up to be. So, and then also I noticed there was a little footnote.
Yeah, I think it could be very fan friendly. Mm-hmm. It could have elements of a spectacle, which fans love, and this could really be big.
And it's short of rounds,
especially with some of the big names coming in. And maybe if Brock Lesnar's not successful against Cormier, well, maybe he'll get there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's also, kind of like a retirement home for these fighters. Although I don't advocate that part of it. I mean, some of these guys probably shouldn't be fighting anymore, but it's something new and different. And a lot of these guys were always good brawlers anyway in MMA, so why not? Why not give it a chance? And I like the idea of the shorter rounds too. It's kind of like the amateurs of boxing for us when we were in college. So it was a little bit shorter rounds, and you got to learn a little bit without having to have the world's best physique to get through each round. But some of these guys that they put out there to begin with probably shouldn't have been in there. But the more fights and fighters they generate here, I think the better cards we're going to see. It's definitely going to get interesting. They also had a footnote on the last notice that I got about the new rules. They've added rules where spinning back fists and back fists are legal now. I don't know if that was illegal before, but they're definitely legal now. They're putting the word out there. Obviously, we've talked about how the so-called dirty boxing is illegal in bare knuckle boxing too. So I don't know. It's gonna be a lot of kickboxers, boxers, and ex-MMA fighters getting together to prove whose style's best for this one instead of MMA. For this new discipline, although it's old, really, bare knuckle boxing, but this is definitely a new spin on it with all the MMA connections. Because this, I don't think anybody in back in the day, in John L. Sullivan's day, was throwing spinning back fists in bare knuckle.
Hey, yeah, right.
So we'll see, but I think it's promising. I just kind of feel bad for Damon Feldman because he went in there and spent all the time and money to get this legalized, and now some upstart's coming in trying to throw big names out there and upstage him. Unless he's partnered with the guy or, has a side agreement. I don't know. He has been alleged to have done stuff like that in the past with some of his other MMA promotions in the Atlantic City area there. In the casinos, but I think he's got a home run with this one, and I'd really like to see him succeed with it and get it off the ground. But it is intriguing to see other organizations starting to pop up already, very quick.
Rick, have they had any of those early fights or the newer cards put on YouTube yet?
I'm not sure, but I've watched a couple of them now that they give me for free from Fight TV. And so any time a big one comes up, they'll send me a message about it, and all I got to do is, say I want to cover this, and they'll send me a free password. So before the next one comes up, I'll make sure you get the free password so you can watch it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Because, we always need spectacles. That's why I wish X-Arm could have stuck around.
Yeah.
But boy, that just flamed out.
Yeah, it's crazy. It reminds me of all those fads throughout history where 10 years later everybody's like, oh, this thing from 10 years ago is really cool now. But this time it's 200 years ago.
Yeah, well,
it's like these people that go to Civil War reenactments and, they dress up like knights and swing swords at each other.
Yeah. Well, the problem with XRM, it just never seemed to get any traction.
Yeah.
One event, there must have been all kinds of problems with getting it on, getting it live viewed or something. Just never heard anything else about it.
I'll tell you, though, the ass kicking of the week, this is totally related to fighting, but unrelated, I should say. The ass kicking of the week that I've seen, nobody else could ever recover from, but somehow this guy did, was the movie The Revenant. I just saw it for the first time last night on TV, on network TV, and the bear attack, if you guys have ever seen that movie. Oh my God, this guy gets his ass kicked. Somehow he survives it all and multiple other attempts on his life, but oh my God. I didn't think it was that great a movie when I first saw it and watched it for 5 minutes, but then I watched it from the point before the bear attack. I was like, whoa, this is nuts. Have you guys seen it?
No. No, yes, I have.
Look it up on YouTube. The Revenant Bear Attack. Oh my God, you guys will flip. Oh, it's brutal. I don't know how the guy... It's supposedly based on a true story, so I don't know how this guy really survived, but, obviously they didn't depict it exactly as it happened, but it seems pretty real. Probably not too unlike how the...
I guess the guy's guard wasn't sufficient to hold the bear to set up an armbar, huh?
No. He ended up killing the bear finally after the bear had already thrashed him around and bit him a couple times and then, pushed him to make sure he was supposedly dead, or not moving. And the guy stayed still. He'd already been pretty fucked up. And the bear goes, and obviously this happens most of the time when cubs are around. So it's the mother and there's cubs. And so the cubs are running around. So the mother comes back to check on the guy and rips him up a little bit again, smacks him around. But this is after the guy has crawled to get his gun. And as the bear is coming back to him, he shot him in the shoulder. So he did get a shot off on him with the gun, but then the bear comes after him again and has enough energy to rough him up again. And he somehow gets a knife out and stabs the thing in the neck 6 times. On the 3rd time, the bear comes back. So the bear ends up with him. He rolls downhill first, and then the bear ends up dead, rolling downhill on top of him. So he sits there with the bear on top of him until his buddies come back and get him. Oh, it's nuts. And you think when it came out, it was like, oh, it's a 4-hour movie, but then you find out that Leonardo DiCaprio won an Oscar for it. Nobody wants to sit there and watch it for all that time, but it's an Oscar winner, so my curiosity was piqued, so I wanted to watch it. Finally saw it. I was like, wow, that is amazing. True survival story. Then there's a crazy fight scene at the end too. Oh, guy gets his fingers chopped off. It's one of the most brutal physical person-to-person fight scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Unreal. And this is after he's been attacked by bear and lived. Some other guy tries to kill him. Nuts. And speaking of babies and their mothers, another thing, a marvel of nature I got to see today was a mother turkey trying to teach her little babies how to fly. Right in my side yard. I go out to the shed to grab something. I look up in the tree and there's a turkey just flew up there. And then all of a sudden I hear these little cheeps and the little birds, the little baby ones are trying to fly up there to sit with her for the night. They're all over the place. And then they see me. They're trying to turn around, go the other way. Oh, it was hilarious. I didn't get good video, though, because they were too high up. And they kept running from me. That was one of the funniest things I've seen in wildlife. That's all we got for combat sports. Unless you guys got anything else to add, I guess we'll call it.
All right, I'm going to try to send you guys some good photos from the fight this weekend.
Yeah, awesome.
We will be anxiously waiting. Bated breath.
Yeah. I'm going to check out Boxer to see who else is on the card. My friends were asking. I was like, I told them, I said, the fights in Atlantic City, the brand new Hard Rock, might even be the first card they're having there since it opened just a month ago. And I said, it's not out of the realm of possibility that guys that train out of my gym could be on the card.
Right.
Then of course, because I got these, like upper level seats, cheaper seats. My friend, if you know people, you think you can get us down closer? All right, relax, guys.
Right.
Yeah, maybe one of us, aka me.
You want me to call Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy, why don't you come back on our show? And by the way, Tony's going to be there at the show this weekend. So why don't you give him a backstage
Can you hook him up a little bit? He was a real good article about Arturo. I think, you can really take care of him.
Right. We're probably due to talk to her again anyway. We should start recycling some of these great interviews that we've had. Before we can anymore. Let's see. Who are we looking for? Saturday, August 4th. Kovalev, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you who else is on that card before we go. Alright, so we talked about Bivol versus Chilemba. We've also got Vaughn Alexander versus Dennis Douglin. Super welterweights.
And I've seen him fight before. He's from the Lancaster area, about an hour and a half from where I live. Mama's boy. Yeah, Mama's boy. That's his name.
Oh yeah, that's right.
His mom trains him.
That's right. I remember that. We talked to him on the show too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now. That was kind of a shorter interview, but it's good. Bakram Murtazaliev, probably butchering that one. He's 12-0. He's fighting for the interim IBA World Super Welterweight title against Fernando Carcamo, who's 23-8. Frank Galarza, 19-2-2, versus Alexandro Duarte, 13-5-1. Madiar Ashkayev, he is 9-0, fighting Eduardo Flores, 26-29-4. Myreem Nursultanov, he's a tough one, 7-0, fighting Jonathan Batista, who's 17-14. Welterweights Enrico Gogokia, who is 7-0, fighting Ronald Montes, who's 18-9. And then we got lightweights Carl Dargan, 17-1, fighting Jonathan Perez, who is 37-21. He's only got one win in his last 6 fights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lightweight. He's a lightweight. And super welterweights in the first fight, Ismael Villarreal, who's 2-0, fighting Kieran Hooks, who's 3-0-1. So that's just somebody's always got to go fight too. On a mini scale. Great name for a fighter though. Hooks. Kieran Hooks. Alright guys.
Alright. Sounds good, man.
This weekend, let's enjoy every minute of it. Talk to you guys next week.
Sure. Gentlemen.
Adios.